Wow, look at the captain.
You're looking at Captain Atlas himself.
Yes! A true adventurer. And now, the adventure continues with this.
Just wait until you see what's inside Captain Atlas, the Bermuda Trap.
And that's not all. Both of our Captain Atlas adventures are now available on Amazon KDP. You can find all the links in the description below.
And now, are you ready?
It's finally time!
For our season finale.
Captain Atlas, Marin, and the Professor were inside the research center. Outside, the storm pounded against the windows, while the low hum of the monitors filled the room. Atlas took a deep breath and began telling the ancient Viking stories whispered across the seas for generations. Floki, Ragnar, and his great-great-great-grandfather, Bjorn. People believed that Floki had discovered Odin's secret garden. Ragnar and Bjorn had followed him to find it. But they had never returned. Atlas spoke excitedly. Some Vikings believed they were still alive. Without saying a word, the Professor unfolded the ancient Viking map in front of him. Then he projected a digital map of Iceland onto the screen and carefully aligned the two maps together. Suddenly he froze. His eyebrows tightened. Atlas noticed immediately. The Professor slowly pointed at the brightest star marked on the map. Gargantua. Black hole. The enormous black hole. The star aligned perfectly with one location. Skogafoss. Marin stared in disbelief. That can't be a coincidence, the Professor murmured quietly. Maybe it isn't. The atmosphere inside the room suddenly changed. This was no longer just an old Viking legend. Softly, the Professor said, Mia, search all historical records about the waterfall. Prepare the research aircraft and send a ground-scanning drone to the area. A few seconds later, Mia's artificial voice echoed through the room. Legends related to the waterfall have been compiled. The Professor began reading the information on the screen. According to ancient Viking legends, the famous double rainbow at Skogafoss was not caused by water alone. There were stories about a golden light hidden behind the waterfall, and that light was connected to the treasure chest of Prasi, one of the first Vikings to settle in Iceland, and a feared dark sorcerer. Without taking his eyes off the map, the Professor spoke quietly. If this map was truly sent by Odin, then the gate only opens on the day Gargantua is closest. He took a deep breath. That means Floki had arrived at Skogafoss at exactly the right time. Atlas's heart began to race, time stopping. The gate opening. So the waterfall truly was a passage to Odin's secret garden. The next day, the sky was still dark when Atlas, Marin, and the Professor arrived in Iceland. The moment they landed, they loaded their gear into the vehicle and drove off as fast as they could. The journey was tense. Outside, freezing Icelandic winds shook the vehicle, while the headlights barely pierced the endless darkness ahead. Time was running out. The only sounds were the engine and the rhythmic ticking of the windshield wipers. At last, Atlas tightened his grip on the steering wheel and smiled faintly. Feels like we always arrive at the last second, without taking his eyes off the road. The Professor smiled slightly. Maybe they're waiting for us. Hours later, they finally arrived at Skogafoss. The sky was deep navy blue. The roar of the waterfall tore through the silence of the night. They stepped out of the vehicle. The Professor kept checking his watch. For the first time, Atlas could feel how nervous he truly was. Minutes later, they stood directly in front of the massive waterfall. Gigantic silver streams crashed down the cliffs like liquid moonlight. The Professor inhaled deeply. It's time. At that moment, the sun began to rise over the horizon. As the first rays of sunlight touched the freezing water, a gigantic double rainbow appeared across the sky. Marin whispered in awe. Wow! And then the world fell silent. The roar of the waterfall vanished. The wind stopped. The water droplets froze in mid-air like suspended crystals. The professor slowly stepped forward and reached toward the water. Then he froze. "It's not wet," he whispered. His fingers felt as though they were touching frozen glass. The professor took one step forward and passed straight through the waterfall. Atlas tried to shout, "Professor!" but no sound came out. It felt as though the world itself had stopped breathing. Atlas and Marin looked at each other, and without hesitation, they leaped into the waterfall. Inside was another world. The sky was unnatural. Stars shimmered between shades of blue and violet, even in daylight. Golden mist drifted across the ground. There was no wind, no sound, only silence. They walked toward a glowing light ahead of them. The light swallowed them whole, and when they opened their eyes, they stood at the heart of the legends. 3 silhouettes slowly emerged from the mist. The first was a man with long blonde hair, dressed in ancient Viking clothing, carrying a wise and peaceful smile. "I am Floki." "Floki?" Beside him stood the legendary warrior Ragnar. Ragnar. And the third figure, Atlas, froze. His eyes filled with tears. The stories he had listened to before falling asleep as a child. The legendary explorer who inspired him to sail the seas. The hero he had admired his entire life. His great-great-great-grandfather Bjorn stood before him in all his greatness. The man Atlas thought existed only in myths was breathing right in front of him. Bjorn slowly approached Atlas. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he placed his hand on Atlas's shoulder. "So, you are Atlas," he said with a faint smile. "You finally found the way." Atlas could not hold back any longer. With all the admiration and longing he had carried his entire life, he rushed forward and embraced the hero of his childhood. Bjorn wrapped his enormous arms around him gently, while Atlas whispered with a trembling voice, "My great-great-great-grandfather. All those stories. You're real." The reunion was short-lived. Floki's face darkened. "When we came here," he said quietly, "we were not alone. Prasi came with us." Ragnar slowly nodded. But when the gate opened, Odin saw the darkness inside him and refused to let him enter. Atlas's eyes widened in shock. "Now I understand," he said. "You never disappeared. Prasi trapped you here." Bjorn lowered his head. "Yes, but trapping us was not the worst thing he did. He cast a dark spell, binding Gargantua to the world." Floki looked up at the enormous stars above them. "Gargantua grows larger every year, Atlas. And if that spell is never broken," Atlas asked in horror, "then how do we stop it?" Floki's gaze hardened. "You must find the chest Prasi hid from everyone. There is no gold inside that chest. There is something capable of breaking the cycle. But the chest lies beyond the darkest and most dangerous waters in existence." He slowly pulled ancient parchments from beneath his cloak. "Ship blueprints. There is only one way to reach it. A ship." Atlas stared in confusion. "Just with a ship?" Floki smiled faintly, though his eyes remained serious. "Not an ordinary ship, Atlas. A Viking ship carved from the roots of Yggdrasil itself. Only such a vessel can survive the cursed waters of Prasi." As Atlas studied the parchments, a sudden thought flashed through his mind. "The broken metal handle," he whispered. "If we found it, would it help us?" Floki, Ragnar, and Bjorn all looked up at the same time. Shock filled their faces. "The broken handle?" Floki asked. "How do you know about that?" Atlas stepped forward excitedly. "The Skogar Museum. The metal ring torn from the chest years ago is displayed there." Ragnar struck Bjorn's shoulder with excitement while Floki's eyes widened. "Atlas, that handle is no ordinary piece of metal. A star map is carved into it. A map leading directly to the island where the chest is hidden. If you retrieve it from the museum and build the Yggdrasil ship, you can find the chest. That handle is the key." Atlas immediately turned back, ready to leave. But the waterfall gate was gone. Floki shook his head slowly. "The exit gate is not here, Atlas. It lies 3 days beyond the mountains. and it will only open for a very short time. We must leave immediately." And so, their journey through Odin's secret garden began. During the days, they crossed legendary forests beneath skies filled with strange stars. At night, beside campfires surrounded by golden mist, ancient knowledge passed from one generation to the next. Atlas walked beside Floki, learning how to bend wood, how to give a ship a soul, and how a true Yggdrasil vessel was built. The professor was no longer merely an observer. Beside the campfire, he and Bjorn spread ancient maps across the ground, calculating the symbols and runes that might be carved into the museum handle. Meanwhile, Marin and Ragnar studied the stars together, learning how to navigate the cursed waters ahead. The 3-day journey became far more than a walk. It became a bridge between modern science and ancient Viking wisdom. On the 3rd night, a gigantic pillar of light appeared through the mist. The exit gate had opened. It was time. Bjorn stepped toward Atlas. His eyes shone with pride. He placed a hand on Atlas's shoulder. "Your journey belongs to the stormy seas, Atlas. Our spirits found peace here. But your battle is only beginning. One day you will return. Because it is only the beginning." Atlas embraced his ancestor tightly one final time. The professor and Marin bowed respectfully to Floki and Ragnar. Then the 3 of them walked toward the towering light. A freezing wind struck their faces, and suddenly they found themselves standing at Godafoss. Night had fallen. The cold was unbearable. Slowly they lifted their eyes toward the dark sky. Atlas's breath stopped. The professor froze in place. Marin stepped backward in fear. Above them, Gargantua had appeared. It was no longer a small star in the sky, and with every passing year, it was growing larger. "Thank you for joining us on this incredible adventure. Many mysteries still remain, and countless discoveries await beyond the horizon. The ocean remembers everything, and new stories reveal themselves to those who are patient. Season 2 is coming soon. Get ready for lost Viking treasures, uncharted seas, and brand new friends. And if you'd like to continue this journey beyond the screen, our Captain Atlas books, created for both children and adults, are now available on Amazon. By purchasing our books, you'll help support future adventures and become part of the Captain Atlas journey. You'll find all the links in the description below. Until our paths cross again, fair winds and following seas, the greatest adventure is only just beginning. Captain Atlas Adventures. Season 2, coming soon. Captain Atlas books are available now on Amazon. Links are in the description below. To be continued.